I was polishing wine glasses when our terrified busboy ran through the kitchen screaming that someone collapsed in the walk-in fridge. By the time I got there, it wasn't heat stroke. It was revenge. And it all started with a missing $73. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and tell me if you've ever worked somewhere shady. Now, let's jump into it. My name is Grace, and this happened 2 years ago at the Harvest Table in Minneapolis. You know the type of place: exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs, $20 eggs Benedict that Instagram influencers love. I'd been floor manager there for 3 years, and honestly, I loved it. Past tense. The owner, Marcus Brennan, was this charismatic 50-something guy who'd inherited the building from his father. Salt and pepper beard, always wore expensive watches, drove a Tesla. Everyone thought he was this progressive, employee-friendly boss because he'd throw us pizza parties and call us family in staff meetings. My golden retriever Maple would wait for me in my car during shifts. She's my emotional support dog, trained after a car accident left me with chronic back pain and anxiety. Some nights, I'd take my break just to sit with her in the parking lot, her head on my lap, reminding me why I kept showing up. The first red flag? It was subtle. Like finding a single dead fly in your soup. You notice it, but you're not sure if it means the whole kitchen is infested. It was a Thursday night in October. We'd done almost $12,000 in sales. Crazy busy. I was counting tips with Sarah, our head server, when she frowned at her phone calculator. "This doesn't add up," she said, pushing blonde hair behind her ear. "The POS system says we had 840 in credit card tips tonight, but there's only 767 here. $73. Not a fortune, but not nothing either. Maybe Marcus already took out the tip share for the kitchen?" I suggested, though something felt off. Kitchen staff got tipped out separately. Always had. Sarah shook her head. I asked Jorge. Kitchen got their normal cut. This is different. We decided to track it. Every night for 2 weeks, Sarah and I secretly documented the tip totals from the POS system and compared them to what actually got distributed. Every single night, money was missing. Sometimes $50, sometimes over $100. The worst part? Marcus had installed new security cameras 3 months earlier, supposedly to prevent theft. The irony wasn't lost on us. But those cameras? They mysteriously never worked when we needed to check something. Then came the night that changed everything. It was Halloween, and we were slammed. I was running food when I heard a crash from the kitchen. Tyler, one of our newer cooks, had slipped on a wet spot near the grill. The burn on his arm was bad, really bad. 2nd degree, blistering immediately. "Call 911, I shouted, grabbing clean towels. But Marcus appeared out of nowhere, surprisingly calm. "No need for that. I've got a first aid kit in my office. Workers' comp will cover it if we handle it in-house." Tyler, barely 22 and here on a student visa, just nodded through the pain. But something about Marcus's reaction made my skin crawl. He seemed almost prepared for this. Later that night, after Tyler had been bandaged up and sent home with $200 cash for his trouble, I overheard Marcus on the phone in his office. The door was cracked and I was grabbing deposit bags from the safe. "No, the claim is already filed," he was saying. "Kitchen accident, just like we discussed." Yeah, the wet floor sign was definitely out. Of course we have documentation, but there had been no wet floor sign. I'd checked. And Tyler had slipped on grease that shouldn't have been there, grease from a container that had been left precisely where someone rushing around that corner would hit it. I felt sick. Was he staging accidents for insurance money? Combined with the tip skimming, what else was Marcus doing? That's when I decided to really dig. And what I found would destroy everything. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting at my apartment. 6 of us showed up: Sarah, Tyler with his bandaged arm, Jorge from the kitchen, Amy the bartender, Derek our sommelier, and me. Maple sensed the tension, pacing between us with her tail low. "We need to be smart about this," I said, spreading out the papers I'd printed. "Look at these numbers." For 3 weeks we'd been screenshotting everything. POS reports, tip distributions, schedule changes, even Marcus's social media posts where he bragged about the Harvest Table's record profits while we were struggling to pay rent. Sarah had created a spreadsheet. The theft was systematic, almost elegant in its consistency. Marcus was skimming between 8 and 15% of credit card tips every single night. Over the past year, we calculated he'd stolen approximately $32,000 from us. From his family. That's grand larceny, Derek said quietly. He'd been a paralegal before becoming a sommelier. In Minnesota, that's a felony. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Guys, I can't lose this job. My visa, you won't, Amy said firmly. She was our youngest but fiercest, all 5'2" of her radiating determination. We're going to do this right. Legal. Public. Devastating. That's when Jorge dropped a bomb that made everything else look like sparklers. My cousin works at Wells Fargo, he said slowly. Marcus got a PPP loan during COVID. $300,000 to keep staff employed. He paused. But didn't he lay off half the restaurant? Didn't you all get let go for 6 months? The room went silent. We'd all been laid off during the pandemic, told the restaurant couldn't afford to keep us. We'd struggled, collected unemployment, some of us had moved back with parents or taken grocery store jobs. Meanwhile, Marcus had gotten nearly $350,000 specifically to keep us employed. Holy shit, Sarah whispered. We need a lawyer, I said. And maybe something else. What do you mean? Tyler asked. I pulled out my phone. My college roommate Kelly is an investigative reporter at WCCO. She's been begging me for a good story. The room erupted in nervous energy. This was bigger than tip theft now. This was federal fraud. This was prison time. But Derek raised a concern that chilled us. If we go public, he'll fire us all immediately. Minnesota's an at-will state. Then we file for arbitration first, I said, remembering something from my own research. The employee handbook requires arbitration for disputes. He can't fire us while that's pending without it looking like retaliation. We spent the next 3 days gathering everything. Sarah was brilliant, using her admin access to download months of reports before Marcus could notice. Jorge's cousin provided public records about the PPP loan. Tyler, despite his injury, photographed the kitchen's accident-prone areas where 2 other suspicious injuries had happened in the past year. Then Amy found something that made my blood run cold. Guys, she said during our 4th secret meeting, this time at a coffee shop downtown. Look at Marcus's wife's Facebook. She showed us a post from 3 weeks ago. Marcus's wife, Diane, posing on a beach in Turks and Caicos. Caption, blessed to be building our dream vacation home. Construction starts next month. The comments were full of congratulations. The timing was perfect. They were building a vacation home with our stolen tips and fraudulent PPP money while we were rationing groceries. I want to burn it all down, Sarah said, and I'd never heard her sound so angry. We will, I promised. But legally, methodically, and publicly. I called Kelly that night. She nearly drove off the road when I explained what we had. Grace, this is huge, like potentially national news huge. PPP fraud is the story everyone's chasing right now. Can you protect my people? Some of them can't afford to lose their jobs. I'll keep everyone anonymous until you file the arbitration. Then it becomes public record anyway. But Grace, once this drops, there's no going back. I looked at Maple curled up beside me on the couch, her golden fur warm against my leg. She looked up at me with those brown eyes that had seen me through so much already. There's already no going back, I told Kelly. He crossed a line when he hurt Tyler. We filed for arbitration the next Monday. All 6 of us as a group. The claim was for wage theft, hostile work environment, and fraudulent business practices. We asked for full restitution, penalties, and a requirement that Marcus sell the restaurant or place it under independent management. Marcus was served the papers during the Tuesday dinner rush. I'll never forget his face when the process server handed him that envelope in front of a full dining room. The color drained from his skin like someone had pulled a plug. But what happened next? None of us saw it coming. Marcus called an all-staff meeting for the next morning. Mandatory. Anyone who didn't show would be terminated. We all showed up, the 6 of us who'd filed sitting together like a small army. Maple was in my car, and I'd parked where I could see her through the window. Something about this meeting felt dangerous. Marcus stood at the front of the dining room, and for the first time, I saw him for what he really was. Not the charismatic owner but a cornered animal. I'm disappointed, he began, voice shaking with barely controlled rage. After everything I've done for you all, the opportunities I've provided. And this is how you repay me? You stole from us, Sarah said simply. I invested in this restaurant. Marcus roared, slamming his hand on the bar. Several servers flinched. Every penny that comes through this door is because of my risk, my building, my vision. And our labor, Jorge said quietly. Our burns, our aching feet, our missed holidays. Marcus's wife Diane suddenly entered through the kitchen. She was carrying a box of papers, and her face was streaked with tears. Tell them, she said to Marcus. Tell them the truth, or I will. The room went silent. Marcus's jaw clenched. Diane, not now. My husband, she announced, voice cracking, has been gambling. Online poker, sports betting, he's lost everything. The house is being foreclosed on. The vacation home in Turks and Caicos, that was a lie to save face. The PPP loan, it went straight to covering his debts. The box of papers spilled across a table. Bank statements, betting site printouts, foreclosure notices. The truth was uglier than we'd imagined. The tip money, Diane continued, now looking directly at us, was going to a bookie. Someone who threatened to break his legs last month if he didn't pay. I felt the room shift. Some of the staff who hadn't joined our arbitration were looking at Marcus with disgust, others with pity. But then Diane said something that changed everything. But that's not the worst part. She pulled out a folder. The insurance claims for the kitchen accidents. I found the emails. He planned them. Paid Jorge's predecessor Miguel to stage his burn injury last year. $15,000 payout. Tyler stood up so fast his chair fell backward. You burned me on purpose? No, Marcus said quickly. Your accident was real. I would never, but you would have, Tyler said, his voice deadly quiet. If I hadn't slipped on my own, you would have made it happen. That's when we heard the sirens. Kelly had warned me she was running the story on the 6 o'clock news, but I didn't expect the FBI to move this fast. Apparently, PPP fraud combined with insurance fraud and potential assault charges was enough to mobilize quickly. 2 federal agents entered, followed by 3 local police officers. The lead agent, a woman who looked like she could stare down a tornado, spoke clearly. Marcus Brennan, we have a warrant to search these premises and all associated financial records. Marcus tried to run, actually tried to bolt through the kitchen. But Jorge, all 6'3" of him, simply stepped into his path. Sit down, Jefe, Jorge said calmly. Time to face the music. What happened next was surreal. The agents began boxing up documents, while one officer read Marcus his rights. But the most shocking moment came when Diane approached our group. I'm sorry, she said, tears flowing freely. I knew about the tips for months. I should have said something, but I loved him, and I thought he'd get help. She handed me a flash drive. Everything's on here. Every transaction, every bet, every stolen penny. Use it in your arbitration. As they led Marcus away in handcuffs, he looked back at us. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the man I'd thought he was. Broken, desperate, human. I'm sorry, he mouthed. But sorry doesn't pay rent. Sorry doesn't heal Tyler's arm. Sorry doesn't undo months of stress and fear and struggle. The restaurant was closed by order of the federal investigation. We all stood in the parking lot, unemployed but vindicated. Kelly's news van pulled up just as the last police car was leaving. Ready to tell your story? She asked me. I looked at my coworkers, my friends, my chosen family. Sarah nodded. Tyler, despite everything, gave a thumbs up. Even Derek, usually so reserved, stepped forward. Yeah, I said, Maple's leash tight in my hand as she sensed my emotion. We're ready. But the interview would reveal something none of us expected. Kelly sat up in the now empty dining room. The late afternoon sun streamed through those windows we'd cleaned 1,000 times, illuminating dust motes like tiny witnesses to our story. Just tell it naturally, Kelly said, adjusting her camera. Start from the beginning. I was 3 minutes into explaining the tip skimming when we heard the knock. Not a normal knock, but the authoritative rap of someone with a badge. The FBI agent from earlier entered with someone new, a forensic accountant, who introduced himself as Agent Chen. We need to ask you all some additional questions, Agent Chen said, then noticed the camera. Is this live? Recording for the 6 o'clock news, Kelly said, not backing down an inch. These employees have a right to tell their story. Agent Chen considered this, then surprised us. Mind if we join? The public should know how to spot these schemes. What followed was the most intense hour of my life. As we laid out the evidence for Kelly's camera, Agent Chen kept adding context that made everything worse. The PPP fraud alone is 10 years federal prison, he explained. But the insurance fraud, the wage theft, and what appears to be money laundering through offshore betting sites. Mr. Brennan is looking at potentially 20 to 30 years. Money laundering, Sarah gasped. Agent Chen nodded. The betting sites he used are fronts for organized crime. Every dollar he put through them helped wash dirty money. He might not have known, but ignorance isn't a defense. Then Agent Chen dropped the real bomb. We've also discovered Mr. Brennan took out loans against the restaurant itself, using forged signatures from his deceased father's estate. Wait, I said, my head spinning. His father's been dead for 5 years. Exactly. He's been forging his father's signature on documents, pretending the estate was still active. The restaurant technically belongs to 3 heirs, Marcus and his 2 sisters in California. Derek laughed bitterly. So he stole from his own sisters too? They're flying in tomorrow, Agent Chen confirmed, and they're very interested in making things right. Kelly kept the camera rolling as each of us told our story. Tyler showed his still healing burn. Jorge talked about watching his cousins lose their restaurants honestly during COVID while Marcus thrived on fraud. Amy revealed she'd been living in her car for 2 months because the stolen tips meant she couldn't make rent. But the most powerful moment came from Sarah. I'm pregnant, she announced, and even I didn't know this. 8 weeks, I've been terrified to tell anyone because I couldn't afford to lose this job. I've been saving every penny for the baby, and he was stealing from my child before it's even born. The room went quiet except for the hum of the camera. That's when Marcus's sister Catherine walked in. She'd taken an earlier flight. Catherine Brennan Walsh was everything Marcus wasn't: stern, honest, and absolutely furious. She wore a business suit that probably cost more than I made in a month, and her eyes were the same green as Marcus's but cold as winter. I've been cleaning up my brother's messes since we were kids, she said directly to the camera. But this ends now. She turned to us. I'm prepared to offer a settlement. Right now. Before arbitration. Derek started to speak, but Catherine held up a hand. $1.5 million, divided among all affected staff based on time employed and damages suffered. Plus, I'll ensure the restaurant reopens under new management, and you all have guaranteed jobs if you want them. What's the catch? I asked. Because there's always a catch. No catch. But I have a condition. I want one of you to manage it. Someone who knows the staff, knows the customers, knows what Marcus destroyed. I'll be a silent partner, handling only the finances from California. Everyone looked at me. Grace, Catherine said, studying me carefully. I've been watching the security footage from the past month. You're the one who kept this place running despite my brother's chaos. Will you do it? My mouth went dry. Maple, who Kelly had let me bring in for emotional support, pressed against my leg. Can I think about it? Of course. But know this, my brother won't be coming back. Not to the restaurant, not to Minneapolis. Part of his plea deal will include a restraining order keeping him away from all of you. Kelly was practically vibrating with excitement. This was going from local news to national headline material. But then Tyler asked the question we were all thinking: what about the staff who didn't join the arbitration? The ones who were too scared. Catherine's expression softened. Everyone who worked here in the last 2 years gets a share, even the ones who stayed silent. Fear shouldn't be punished. As we were processing this, Agent Chen's phone rang. He answered, his face growing grim. There's been an incident at the jail, he said. Marcus attempted to harm himself. He's in the hospital, under psychiatric hold. The room fell silent. Despite everything, none of us had wanted this. Diane, who'd been quietly standing in the corner, spoke. He texted me. Before he said he never meant for it to go this far. Started with just $50 to cover a bet, then it snowballed. Addiction is a disease, Catherine said coldly. But it doesn't excuse the choices he made. Kelly turned off the camera. I have enough for the story. But Grace, what are you going to do? I looked around the room at these people who'd become my family. At Tyler's bandaged arm, Sarah's protective hand over her still flat stomach, Jorge's steady presence, Amy's fierce loyalty, Derek's quiet strength. Then down at Maple, who'd been my anchor through all of this. We're going to rebuild, I said, but this time we do it right. The story aired that night. Kelly had edited it brilliantly, focusing not on Marcus's downfall, but on our solidarity. Within hours, it went viral. #tip theft truths started trending. Other restaurant workers across the country began sharing their own stories. The next morning, I met with Catherine at a lawyer's office downtown. Maple came with me, her service vest bright against her golden fur. "The settlement is real," Catherine assured me, sliding documents across the table. "But I need to tell you something about the restaurant." My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought. The catch. The building needs major repairs. Marcus neglected everything. The kitchen equipment is failing. There's water damage in the basement, and the HVAC system is shot. It'll take at least $200,000 to get it properly running again. So the settlement money would just go right back into fixing his mess. "No, I'll cover the repairs personally." Consider it my apology for not stopping him sooner. I knew he had problems. Our other sister Patricia and I discussed intervening last year. She trailed off. "Family is complicated." I signed the papers to become managing partner. My share of the settlement, plus the new salary, would be enough to finally get proper treatment for my back pain. Maybe even move out of my studio apartment. The arbitration was officially settled 2 weeks later. Marcus, from his hospital bed, agreed to everything. He'd pled guilty to federal charges in exchange for 5 years in prison, 3 years probation, and mandatory addiction treatment. But the real victory came when we reopened. We'd spent a month renovating, and the staff had voted on everything. New name, the collective table. New policy, complete financial transparency. Every server could see the nightly reports. Every tip was tracked publicly. No mysteries, no skimming possible. Opening night was emotional. The place was packed, mostly with people who'd seen the news story. Kelly was there, doing a follow-up piece. Sarah, now showing slightly, wore a shirt that said "future server" with an arrow pointing to her belly. Tyler, his arm fully healed but scarred, worked the kitchen with Jorge. Amy ran the bar, with Derek handling wine service. Catherine flew in for the opening. She pulled me aside during a quiet moment. "Patricia and I have been talking," she said. "We want to sell you our shares. Not now, but in 5 years. Give you time to save up, get established. We'll offer them at below market value." "Why?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Because this should be yours. Yours and theirs," she gestured to the staff. "You've earned it in ways we never could." Halfway through the evening, an unexpected guest arrived. Diane, Marcus's now ex-wife, looking healthier than I'd ever seen her. "I'm in recovery now too," she said quietly. "Codependency is its own addiction. I just wanted to apologize again, properly." I surprised myself by hugging her. "You helped us when it mattered. That took courage." She handed me an envelope. "Marcus asked me to give this to you." I haven't read it. I tucked it away, unopened. Some words could wait. The night was nearly perfect. Then around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with a news alert. Marcus had been attacked in prison. He was alive, but in critical condition. Apparently someone inside didn't appreciate that he'd stolen from working people. I felt nothing. Then I felt guilty for feeling nothing. Then I felt exhausted by all of it. I stepped out back for air, Maple following. She knew my moods better than I did. As I sat on the loading dock, she put her head in my lap, and I finally let myself cry. Not for Marcus, but for the innocence we'd all lost. For the family we'd thought we had before we learned it was built on lies. Sarah found me there. "You okay, boss?" "Don't call me boss," I said, wiping my eyes. "We're partners now." "Okay, partner." "You good?" "You know what? Yeah, I think I am." We went back inside to find the entire staff and half the customers singing happy birthday to Jorge's kid, who'd come to see where Daddy worked. The sight of that little boy's face, covered in chocolate cake, surrounded by people who'd fought together and won, that healed something in me. 3 months later, we got word that Marcus had recovered and been transferred to minimum security. He'd started teaching literacy classes to other inmates. His sister said he'd finally hit rock bottom and was climbing back up. Good for him, I thought. But that wasn't our story anymore. It's been 2 years now. The collective table isn't just surviving, we're thriving. We've won awards for ethical business practices. Other restaurants have copied our transparency model. Sarah had her baby, a little girl named Hope, who sometimes sleeps in a carrier behind the bar, while Sarah works part-time as our beverage director. Tyler got his green card and is now our head chef. Jorge opened a food truck with his settlement money, but still cooks with us twice a week. Amy manages 3 restaurants now, using what she learned from our fight. Derek became a lawyer, inspired by everything that happened. He handles our legal stuff pro bono. And me? I'm writing a book about it all. Kelly connected me with a publisher who thinks our story could help other workers recognize and fight wage theft. Last week, we officially became a worker cooperative. Every employee is now an owner. Decisions are made democratically. Profits are shared equitably. Catherine and Patricia sold us their shares for $1 each, calling it their final apology for their brother's actions. Marcus sent another letter last month. This time I opened it. He thanked us for stopping him before he destroyed more lives, including his own. He's sober, in therapy and working in the prison kitchen, ironically making less than minimum wage but calling it karmic justice. He ended with the collective table is what the harvest table should have been. I'm sorry I was too sick to see it. I didn't write back. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. Tonight as I write this, Maple is sleeping at my feet in my new apartment, one with actual bedroom walls and windows that don't face a dumpster. Her fur is getting gray around her muzzle now, but she still comes to work with me every day, greeting customers who know her by name. Sometimes I think about that first $73. How something so small revealed something so massive. How greed can poison a place, but solidarity can resurrect it. The truth is, we didn't just get revenge. We got something better. We got free. Every night, when we count the tips, everything's there. Every penny accounted for. Every dollar where it should be. It sounds simple, but for those of us who lived through the alternative, it feels like a miracle. If you're watching this and something feels off at your job, trust that feeling. Document everything. Find your people. Fight back. The harvest table died because one man's greed consumed it. But the collective table lives because we refuse to let that be the end of the story. And Maple, she's still my anchor, my golden reminder that even after the worst storms, there's always a calm place to rest your head. She's sleeping now, probably dreaming of the hamburger. Jorge snuck her earlier, unaware she's the emotional support dog to an entire restaurant family. That's our story. Messy, painful, ultimately triumphant. We didn't just take down a bad boss. We built something better from the ashes. The funny thing about revenge, sometimes the best kind isn't destroying someone who hurt you. It's building something so beautiful that their destruction becomes just a footnote in your success story. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, share it. Someone in your life might need to hear that they're not alone, that wage theft is real, and that fighting back is possible. Drop a comment about your own workplace stories. The good, the bad, the ugly. We read every single one. And Marcus, if you're watching this from prison, we forgive you, but we'll never forget. The collective table stands as proof that workers united will never be defeated. This is Grace, signing off. Maple says woof. And remember, always count your tips.